nachos, and welcome to Record Breakers, a music podcast that will be recorded come sleet, snow, rain, Comcast not bothering to connect for what the fuck ever they feel like, because you can see that light. Still ain't connected. Still ain't connected, bitch. That being said,
I'm still recording, and I'm still getting headshot. Wait, no, that's.
We're still here. We still out here. We still out here in the streets, getting things done. I'm P. Rave, your man with no plan. Here with me, and no internet connection either. Here with me is my team, my squad, my crew. We've got Brett.
Check out Scimitar George. He knows all the swords.
Yes.
So yell it into a microphone because Petey's high energy, so I'm high energy, and I have internet.
Yes. We've got Drew.
High energy for now, but I don't know how long that's going to last. Let's roll.
Yes. And we've got Deej, David, holding it down on the recording button. How you doing, Dave?
Delta Juliet Mike Megazord, activated and ready.
Yes.
Who made the Zord? From whence did the pieces of said Zord come from?
Yes. I will say, and now forming the decorative metal caping that makes it a Megazord this time. We've got a special guest here with us. It's been a hot minute since he's been on the show. It's been a criminally long time since he's been on the show. We've got our buddy, our pal, the unofficial fifth record breaker, which apparently wasn't good enough for him to substitute Swag when he left. But still, he's with us now.
Nobody told me.
I know.
The Rooney Rule was in effect.
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah. Wow. But yeah, we've got Matt Walton, aka M. Riddick W, aka Riddick, aka Squiggles McGee. How you doing, Squigs?
I am excellent. I've had 2 cups of coffee today. I hope that's enough.
Yes.
It's pretty late. I had probably more coffee than that, and I hope that yours was sooner than mine was, or was more recent than mine was.
Yes.
Pre-show the show was extended.
Yes. Yeah. We're here. We're talking about music. I'm trading arms for you guys because I don't have one of them.
I got to ride the bullpen cart today. I got to ride the bullpen cart and do backup.
Yes. But yes, we're talking about music. We're talking about an album, and the provider of the album, obviously, as the guest, is Matt. Matt, what have you brought for us this week?
I have brought a little album released in 2002 by an indie artist by the name of Mark Knopfler, aka that one guy from Dire Straits.
Yeah.
And it's called The Ragpicker's Dream.
Indie.
Yeah. Indie. He's an independent artist. Yeah.
That small indie label. Mercury Warner Brothers.
Yes. Yeah.
Love it.
He's pretty independent minded, I guess. I don't know.
Sure.
Let's talk about some expectations. I'm gonna go with David. David, what were your expectations coming into this album?
Well, knowing Mark Knopfler as a guitarist, I expected some acoustic guitar work that would be really, really enjoyable, and something a little bluesy. I knew of his work, including and post Dire Straits, and I was excited. I was interested. It was #interesting, PD Rave.
Yes. Drew, what were your expectations coming into this album?
Well, mostly I knew the name from the Dire Straits. I knew that he did stuff after the Dire Straits, but I didn't really search out much of it. From what I know, though, I knew that he was a great guitar player and carried a lot of blues influence through. But that's pretty much what I was expecting. I was like, oh, this must be him just doing a even more like just guitar forward version of maybe what like Dire Straits did or something. Like that was all I could expect.
Yeah.
I was not correct. Get into that.
Well, we'll get into that. Brett, what were your expectations coming into this album?
I mean, I'm gonna be honest with you guys. Like, I've listened to some Dire Straits. I'm pretty sure I've played the man's signature Stratocaster. There's been a lot of Mr. Knopfler around me, but I haven't really listened to shit. Like, I listened to a little bit of the stuff he did with Chet Atkins, just like barely enough just to be like, this exists. I'm gonna listen to like a song, but I haven't really dug in. It's not really my go-to, so I really had no idea. Like, okay, what is this gonna be? Is it gonna be a guy who sings like he sings and like he does, like he's telling a story about people? Probably. That was my expectation.
Yes.
He is a man of many ballads.
Yes. Matt, how would you describe this album musically? What would be the themes elements that you bring up?
This album is kind of a mix, I would say, between rock, American folk, and kind of Celtic folk as well, because he grew up in Northumberland, I think. Yeah, Blythe, Northumberland. And so a lot of his songs, especially on this album, refer to different songs in especially northern England, like Newcastle and the River Tyne. The other thing that I really like about this album is that it kind of showcases his talents as a songwriter. It's a little light on like the Mark Knopfler Sultans of Swing type shredding. And his singing isn't, it's not virtuosic, but I think it fits.
But it's not Tom Waits.
Yeah. It fits what the song's
more Tom Petty.
It's somewhere in between. I think Tom Petty was a little bit more dynamic.
Yeah. But yeah. David, how would you describe this album musically?
I would describe this album as a very good mix of acoustic folk with a little bit of a blues influence. I heard a few touches of some David Gilmour sprinkled here and there, which I appreciated. Just like a little sprinkle of David Gilmour here and there. And I felt like this album as a whole was definitely a love letter to the working class. And I really appreciated just how the whole package was as an album.
Drew, how would you describe this album musically? What would be the theme elements that caught your attention?
Well, like I sort of alluded to, this is very much a far cry of what I was expecting, but it was really, really well done. It had that bluesy influence that you got from the Dire Straits, but this is very much more an acoustic focused record, an acoustic forward record. The electric guitar work that's sprinkled in for more like solo-y, like riffing type stuff is worked in there, and I think worked into very good effect. But like the other guys have said, this is sort of something that has a lot of influence in like folk and like some like twangy like Americana type stuff, like, which is really cool to me. The production itself, the whole album has this sort of warmth to it that I really, really enjoyed. Especially Knopfler's vocals. It's something that, sorry, a little sniffly. It's something that just the entire time, even when it was more up-tempo stuff, it was really something that was like almost relaxing in a way, just by tone alone. I think the compositions were really great, and the way he weaved in, there wasn't really many like, we're going to break down and do a 1.5 like crazy solo, but there was a lot of like, hey, guess what? I can play the guitar. Like, and he showed off in that. there were parts where other instruments came through. There's definitely a song that sort of hit that for me, but overall it was a really just, I think, a great, like a well composed, really solid album. I don't know if I would say there was anything like groundbreaking or different per se, but it was something where it was something that was definitely greater than the sum of its parts at places, which I think is really cool.
Brett, how would you describe this album musically? What would be the themes, elements that caught your attention?
Well, let's start with the vocals. They're very unique. You know who you're listening to. It's unique. It's kind of like, I don't know, if Tom Petty had dental work and was kind of tired. It's
maybe did a little less drugs in the studio.
Hey, I don't make assumptions here.
Hey, I like me a lot of Tom Petty, but let's be fair about his vocal styling sometimes.
It's not bad. It's just, there's plenty of other things. Like, okay, so this album is produced really well. So like the vocals aren't going to be that dynamic, but the instruments make up for it. And the mix is weird. It's good. It's really good because there's a lot going on. But like there's stuff for the amount of like folk inspiration. There's still some synthesizers that show up. There's still organs that get played. There are things.
The star
that just sort
was the acoustic guitars. They were the star.
But if you just had that, there are a lot of things that. There's a sprawling in this album that is. I will get into that. There are some things that shocked me. But we'll get in that when we get the songs. But like, overall, like the themes, like this is a very much a theme album. This is like the songs about the plight of the nomadic worker. It works because of the like all of my favorite things that Mark has done in music have been songs where he's trying to like bring characters to life and like tell a story. And he does a whole lot of that on this album.
Yeah, and he does it in a pleasant way. I mean, there's a lot of things to like, especially early on in the album. Even if it isn't always the most super dynamic and interesting, but it is musically, I think, especially early on, really kind of fun, kind of interesting. And there's things to like if you want to study and pick apart, really cool.
Some people would say even that's the way that you do it. Make your money for nothing and play your guitar on a channel that doesn't really play guitars anymore.
Yeah, they do. If you watch early enough in the morning,
Nickelodeon.
Just don't
Disney XD.
Don't add trumpets.
Hold on. We'll get to that.
I actually have something to say about that too.
But yeah, let's get into some of the tracks, which I would have some interesting thoughts about after y'all have something to say. But Matt, what would be some of the key tracks for you?
Well, I think the first one that comes to mind is Hill Farmer's Blues, because it just starts out with this haunting inversion of a chord and just going back and forth between these chords. And it's Richard Bennett playing on a tiple, and talking about the working man. There's something just kind of bleak about the song and a bit of a desperation, but it also really demonstrates Mark's subtlety and taste with his fill. Because even though, it's his guitar is overdriven a little bit, but it just sits right in there. Quality Shoe. Mark Knopfler, in the liner notes, he said, "Yeah, this is basically my tribute to King of the Road." Except,
okay, I was wondering that. Let me strike that note out.
Except Mark Knopfler knows how to write a bridge.
Yeah, yep. Let me mark number 2 point out.
And
Do you need to take a second to think of a different song to talk
Actually,
about?
no.
after that?
There's another complete different song where I talk about him riding bridges, so I can save it for a different song.
And damn if it doesn't make me want to buy a quality shoe. Like,
Find yourself a cobbler, man.
no kidding. Like, I went out and bought a pair of steel-toed boots the next day. That's not actually true, but I do now have a pair of steel-toed cowboy boots that I bought used. And there's a great lap steel solo by Paul Franklin. And Paul Franklin, there's steel guitars scattered throughout this album. Just in a really, again, just the perfect place. Coyote. It's a song about Wile E. Coyote, written from the perspective of Roadrunner. And I love the intro because it's kind of probably the funkiest non-slap upright bass you'll ever hear. I think Old Pigweed is so Mulligan is the hook of the song is who put old pigweed in the mulligan? Was it you? And mulligan, it's a stew prepared by like hobos or homeless people. And so the idea is that 5 or 6 people get together and just everybody provides something, meat, onions, tomatoes, potatoes. And I guess one of the ingredients. What's that?
I said greens, beans, tomatoes, potatoes.
Yeah. Okra for thickening.
We got it.
As Mark says. And, but apparently you can put young pigweed in there, but you can't put old pigweed. And I like this song as kind of expressing the frustration of, damn it, man, we're just putting together what we could beg, borrow, and steal, and you just had to go and screw it up by putting some old pigweed in there.
Yeah. Which is a nice metaphor. Nice metaphor. David, what would be some of the key tracks for you?
Before I jump in, I just want to say just about all of these tracks, and I say this in the nicest, most complimentary way, were very reminiscent of the legendary Old John Smokey and his world-famous spoons. And I know that there were a few lyrics on this album that had to do with trains as well. So I really appreciated the vibe. Most specifically,
he really has his influences on his sleeve. I think Mark does.
The tracks,
Old John Smokey.
For me, that stood out were "Daddy's Gone to Knoxville." That felt just almost just like a simple old school folky bluesy song, and I dug the hell out of it. And "You Don't Know You're Born." That one, second, same as the first. The already mentioned Hill Farmers Blues. And I will say the one song that was kind of was A Place Where We Used to Live. I wrote this song as kind of a sleepy song. And on an album that was this subdued, it was a little too sleepy. Not a terrible song by any means, but that one was... it needed a little bit more bounce, I think. A Place Where We Used to Be. But I would say those are the songs that stood out to me the most.
Mm-hmm. Drew, what would be some of the key tracks for you?
Well, start off with Why Man.
Why indeed?
A foot tapper right off the bat to me. It's got a groove to it.
You could shuffle to this one.
Good.
Put on your clogs.
Sniffly. But it was simple. It had like a more acoustic feel to the front, but that electric guitar peppered in with the riffs just throughout. Of course, A Place Where We Used to Live. It was weird getting almost like a vibe of a smoky jazz piano bar in the middle of this record a little bit, which I'm completely okay with. And then Ragpicker's Dream. I had to pick up on Ragpicker's Dream because I always say the title track has to be really, really well made if you're going to name the entire album after a track. And the vocal hits you like a shit ton of bricks. The guitar underneath it, playing in and out of that vocal, I think does really, really exceptionally well. And it does the thing you need to do with a title track, which is put one of your best feet forward if you're going to name the entire album after that. And I think this was one of the better songs on it. So,
Brett, what would be some of the key tracks for you?
Why I Man, a traditional folk blues jam track, kind of. I don't know. It's the opener. It's certainly the first song that Record Breakers has ever listened to that talks about British workers going to get work in Germany to make those Deutschmarks.
That therefore became the theme song of a show of the same premise.
Yes.
Yeah, it was written as the theme to that show, actually.
Okay,
what show?
That makes
Vetus and some or other.
Yes. That one.
I don't have Wikipedia in front of me.
Yeah, neither do I.
I don't have the internet.
Devil Baby. Devil Baby is a song that reminds me a lot of what I think is the best that Mr. Knopfler ever did in anything I've heard, which is the song Romeo and Juliet. It's the ballad that almost, it's not talk singing. it's singing, but it pretty much should be. It works. It's almost like he's narrating a documentary that he's playing musically. It's kind of weird. Hill Farmers Blues. Hey, if you're trying to grow hills, you'd be having blues too. There's a lot of sustain and volume pedal stuff going on in this song that, for being so subdued, having something going in and out. That was my volume pedal impression. Listen to those dynamics I gave you. Also, Quality Shoe. Yes, this is a song about quality footwear in a manner not unlike the song King of the Road. But there's some pretty good piano licks and some steel. It's noteworthy. Daddy's Gone to Knoxville also has some steel guitars, noteworthy. So, and Coyote. I did not know that we were still using MIDI to do horns. That is the sprung of the album. Do they not know? Do they not know somebody who's got a horn somewhere? It doesn't even have to be because it was the
most
brass
famous song
section
literally has a middle finger to horn players in the middle of it. No, they don't know anybody. They all turn their back on them.
I mean, they could have used a saxophone if they had to. It would work too. But it's the
saxophone
MIDI
is always welcome.
Nah, but we got this Casio keyboard in our closet we can use. That'll work. It's not new enough to have the fun stuff like jazz scat, but it sure has the brass trio. There are some choices that I would not have made. But this is very much, now that I've spent some time with it, I understand exactly this is the mind of the guy who had a music video done in the 80s with CG. So this guy's made some bold choices in the past.
Yeah. I think the musically it does a lot of really, there's some cool tracks, like the opening track Why I Man is fun. And it's catchy, and it'll get your feet pumping. Like Hill Farmers Blues is really cool and interesting. The Fare Thee Well Northumberland. I think the big thing I would say about that song is that sounds like it would be the soundtrack to a dramatic trailer for a open world zombie game, or open world post-apocalyptic game.
Need to be whispered into the microphone while a piano plays the tune slowly.
Honestly,
and then you see a swing on a swing set swinging slowly.
Oh my god, yeah. It's not even the somber remake. It's just the somber make.
Yes.
Yeah. It would be how a somber cover would be performed. This would be in this tone a cover
Pre-cover.
of it would be in this style, a cover of like
Lead Me Home, Jamie and Commons.
Yeah.
So now I need to have the ukulele and xylophone version of that song, like as a product demo.
Something in the style of this song, a cover of a Eurythmic song or some shit like that, or of a Kanye West song. Like, I don't know. It's just within this tone.
Eurythmics, Kanye West, either one.
Yeah,
I'll take it.
Put them together.
Yes. And then, but I will say, like, it had those a couple of tracks. It had kind of like it tails off further along at least for me. I don't know about. I know that everybody else was a little bit more keyed in. I know that it tails off for me. And I think the best anecdote for me, the best, most telling, is in one of my listens. I was listening to the album kind of in the background while doing something else. It kind of disappeared in the background after the first few songs that are really kind of the songs that catch my attention. And without, but then at some point, there's a song that comes up, and like, wow, this is a really cool, interesting song. It was dynamic. It was a little bit different, and I was like, oh, this is really cool and interesting. It's a little Pink Floydy, but it sounds really cool. Man, I should really check out what's the name of the song so I can make sure it's one. I could key it is in one of my key tracks. I look and it was "Deja Vu" by Roger Waters.
Yeah, that
Spotify had moved on to the album radio.
Man, this guy's holding notes forever. Man.
Yeah, and like that was the first time after the first few songs that something had clicked in and caught my attention, was when it moved on to another artist. And I think as much as there's a lot to like about this album, I think for me, and even transitioning over into our conclusions, I think that for me, that is the most telling part of it, is that there's a lot to like musically. There's a lot to like about what Mark Knopfler does with his instruments, but I don't know if it necessarily moves me for the most part. Like, I think there's a couple of tracks that are really fun and really cool, but for the most part, a lot of it kind of just, is pleasant and kind of especially falls kind of off a cliff later on in the album. But let's continue with some conclusions. David, what would be your conclusion at the end of it all? What would be your conclusion about the album as a whole?
This album as a whole reminded me of two bands that I really, really enjoy. One of them from England is a group called Big Big Train. And they tell a lot of the same stories about the working class, the industrial class, trains, and the people
and mama
and
getting drunk
happen. Oh, not so much getting drunk. They drink tea.
Truck nuts.
Those guys. And there are also horns. Big Big Train also has horns.
Horns with truck nuts.
Also, the second one was a band that was a favorite of my youth. And that was a band that inexplicably would always get compared to Alice in Chains, Days of the New. They were a predominantly acoustic guitar band, and I love really well done, really intricate acoustic guitar work. And everything about this album really hit me in that spot that really loves really good acoustic guitar playing. So that is the one thing that I would say. If you want something that has a lot of really good guitar work, acoustic or otherwise, and just overall really solid songwriting from start to finish, just solid from start to finish, where one song flows to the next, as Petey said, maybe a little too well, this is an album for you to pick up.
Mm-hmm. Drew, what would be your conclusive thoughts on the album as a whole?
This is something that really took me by surprise, and I really ended up enjoying it from start to finish. like I said, I wouldn't say that it does anything that's crazy new or like crazy out there or different, but it is something that it's like a oddly comforting record in a lot of ways to me. It's something that had that like warmth to it, both in the tone and in like sort of the messages and stuff therein, that it was just sort of groovy. It was a nice push. It's something that if you have any interest in that, if any of it sounds like interesting to you, Big Big Train is actually like a very apt, I think. I heard some of their stuff and that's actually pretty okay. I see where you're getting it. And it's something that he did talk a lot about, and these guys have said like about working class stuff and things like that. It's like I said, weirdly enough, from the guy from across the pond, had a lot of like Americana influence to it, which I think is cool. And like Squig said, it's that like sort of Irish folk influence, the stuff that influenced the Americana, you get the country and stuff like that. It's where it sort of originated, right? So it's something from all of that. If any of that is something you dig on, you should probably seek this out a little bit and take a listen, because it's really, really well done. It's a spit and polish to it that I think is very, very admirable and very, very fun.
Brett, how would you conclude? What would be your conclusion on this album as a whole?
I mean, it's pretty simple. Not all of the songs on this album are hot bangers, but all of them are well crafted. There's nothing bad on this album. But if you're used to listening to things that are more, jump splits and pyrotechnics, this might not be for you. Even if you're into like, ripping overdrive guitars, you're not going to get a ton of that here either. Some of the things that the man is known to be able to do, he does not do on this album. So like, that's not a bad thing. It's a different thing. And this is a different thing than I've ever listened to. And it's kind of weird for a man from him, where he's that guy doing songs that sound very much like, songs from In the Hollers. It's kind of like those people came from somewhere originally and took their music.
Yeah. Matt, Squigs, what would be your conclusion on this album as a whole?
There was a period of time when I was basically just switching forth. I would listen to Ragpicker's Dream, and then I would listen to Communique by Dire Straits, and then I was just in a constant loop of I'd finish one and listen to the other. I've moved on to other albums since then, but it's still such a treat to listen to every time. In my mind, it's I still think of it as a rock album just because I have the association of Mark Knopfler with rock, but it's really not, and it's kind of hard to pin down.
Petey's down. Petey's down.
How many pillows does he have to throw? He's got ammo.
And he does, like, we mentioned previously, he doesn't really let rip his guitar playing, but you get the feeling that it's because he feels that he's proven himself rather than like he can't anymore.
To the point where he will have the amplifier to rip roaring overdrive levels. But it just, nope. We'll just let's roll that volume down. Nope, no overdrive for you. Just going to sit there.
It's like an entire album of Lay Down Sally.
It's like, it's like,
whoa.
That is.
I mean, that is a good thing.
Words.
I mean, that is a good thing.
That means multiple things to different people.
I meant that as a good thing.
Yes.
Speaking of guys from not here that play Stratocasters.
Yes. Yeah. Those are our thoughts on Mark Knopfler, the Ragpicker's Dream. Now we get to the main event of the evening. We get to our haiku reviews. We get to the moment we've all been waiting for, we're all hyped and excited and on our feet, on our beds, our comfy beds. We are.
I just managed to get the Skype shots working. Please don't. No one move.
We get to our haiku reviews. Let's get down to the nitty gritty. Let's get it done. Let's get to haiku numero uno. David, what is your haiku?
Working class Brit rock. On a summer Saturday, great driving music.
Mm-hmm. Drew, what is your haiku?
Was not expecting so much Americana, but I can dig it.
Mm-hmm. I'll insert myself in the middle. Pleasant folksy sound with some bright spots early on, then loses some steam. Brett, what is your haiku?
Gift of an album. Otherwise never would hear. That's almost words. Liked, but didn't love.
Mm-hmm. And of course, Squiggles McGee, Matt, what is your haiku?
Seamless weaving of perfect melancholy and cheerful rag picking.
Yeah.
Pick them rags. I put it right there with my grit and my nits.
And my nose. I'm picking my nose.
I'm picking your nose.
We get that. Those are our thoughts. Those are our haikus, and that wraps it up for the wonderful Mark Knopfler and this pretty cool album, The Ragpicker's Dream. You can, of course, find this album on our Spotify playlist. Play Record Breakers, the home game. Follow along at home. Do your homework. On that Spotify playlist will be next week's record. That will be me, and I will be Comcast willing, recording from over there rather than over here. But you never know. But speaking of chart-topping, record-breaking pop sensations, we're going to be talking about BTS. Yes, those guys. Bangtan Sonyeondan and their latest album, Love Yourself. Tear.
Oh, it's not tear.
No, it's Tear. So look forward to that. Look forward to these guys' thoughts on the biggest K-pop act, ever. And
my sister knows these dudes. Like, this is how big they are. It's weird to me.
Yes, it's weird to me.
They're in commercials. Here, they're in commercials. In America.
Yes. Freaking J-Hope and Sugar and RM. I was about to say Ratmon, aka Rat Monster. I'm gonna tell you all about Rat Monster next week. So look forward to next week. But that is next week, and this is this week. And you can, of course, find us all over the internet. First, Matt, where can people find you? What do you got going on on the internet and in the world?
You can find me on Twitter at imridicw or on my website at matthewwalton.net. If you're in, I got my calendar up there. If you're in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, come see me play sometime and say hi.
Yeah, he's good at shooting hoops.
Yes. He plays things with strings, and he plays them really well. So go see him if you are in the DFW area. I recommend it. But yeah, the rest of us, not nearly as talented, though we try, but you can still find us all over the internet. David is at Please Call Me DJM. Brett is at HibbittyBirbred, HIBBITYBRBBARD. Drew is at Extrusive for X. I'm at PD Rave. The show is at 4 Record Breakers. That's the number 4 Record Breakers. RecordBreakersPodcast.com. RecordBreakersPodcast@gmail.com if you want to email us some feedback or some thoughts or anything you want. Rebelly.net for this and other shows. Rebelly TV on YouTube. Check us out. Find us where you can find all podcasts everywhere. Do all the things like, share, subscribe, everything. Until next time, hasta los huevos.
Toodaloo.
Fuck Comcast.
Powering down Delta Juliet Mike Megazord.